Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here with Josh Scorcher again. This just uploaded today, actually. This one's the top 10 franchise savers. So, yeah, basically games that basically save the franchise. Where it was going downhill, whoop, up we go. So, I think Prince of Persia had that one once. And, well, there's Devil May Cry 5. There's that one definitely saved it. Other than that, I think Sonic Frontiers, I think, could count. Not sure how much does it have to save, like save reputation, save a bankruptcy. Who knows? I'm actually kind of curious to see where this goes. So let's check out the franchise savers. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Here we go.
I am alive.
Hey, he's nice.
About 6 years ago, we talked about the top 10 franchise
Killers,
killers. Now, it's finally time for the opposite.
Right.
These are the franchises that were on life support, near or in some cases completely dead. Then a game miraculously arrived to turn things around. The criteria is pretty simple. How bad of a mess was the franchise previously in, and how much did the new game manage to turn things around? Bonus points if it managed to save the developer and or reignite interest in a genre along the way. Also, remasters are disqualified by default. Games on the list must prove that the devs can put out something new to real success. However, remakes do count if they bring enough new things to the table. So let's have a look at our top 10 franchise savers.
Actually, kind of curious if this counts. So long as the remake adds something new, we're good. Cool. Let's see it. Go. First up, number 10.
The Mario franchise hasn't had any issues standing on its legs as it is, but the sub-series don't get all the same treatment. The RPGs in particular faced a huge drought from real solid installments for pretty much a decade.
Brothership?
While the remakes of 7 Stars and Thousand Year Door did bring the subgenre back into the limelight, the true-to-form fresh installment comes in Mario and Luigi Brothership.
The
game is a gorgeous return to form in Mario and Luigi goodness. From the 3D style that captures the series art perfectly, coupled with some of the biggest, most fleshed out worlds and cast out of any Mario RPG. I ain't kidding, Concordia is huge. There's so much in this world to marvel at and enjoy. From the beautiful and bouncy Floral Island, the fancy business-driven Lot of Coins Island, and one of the best fire and ice levels in Heat Freeze Island. No joke, the ice puzzles are some of the best parts of the game. How did it do that? The characters, while not as witty or edgy as other games, are still really likable. It's nice to have a mostly very wholesome cast with personal depths and struggles that make them a genuine treat to follow. Connie, Snoutlet, Team Idol, and Technicky are all great, but oh man, Chilliam and Bernadette are peak romance. No shade to those who prefer Blake and Tippy. And of course, battle system. It's pretty faithful to what we're familiar with when it comes to the series, from the combined action commands, bros moves, and additional mechanics like battle plugs, which is basically the game's equivalent of badges or cards. The game does struggle a bit with pacing, and you won't get all these mechanics given to you for a while. But once you do get them, the game really does pick up. And sure, the hand-holding is a bit much, but it doesn't stop you dead in your tracks. Sorry, Dream Team. And hey, even with the long playtime and less than stellar pacing, so much stuff happens that it's honestly worth the journey. Enemies get more coordinated, there's a lot of character development, and the boss fights are fun. Also, the main villain and the end game that follows it are so freaking good. And you can tell IGN didn't finish the game before grading it. It's great to see that Acquire was able to pull their weight in drawing attention to the series again. Considering they didn't get bought out and Brothership clutched the sales, I think it's safe to say the future of this series is in good hands. I just hope future sequels will improve on that pacing. That's one cue they should take from Paper Jam. Oh yeah, and add a proper boss gauntlet too. Not a big con, but I'm surprised this game didn't have that. Either way, I'm just glad Mario and Luigi is back. Let's hope it's here to stay and move forward again.
Please. Let's hope so too. Number 9.
Hey everyone, it's time for Josh Scorcher's Where Are They Now? Where we talk about franchises that were featured on previous lists and see where they are now. Today we go back 5 years to franchise killers when we talk about Devil May Cry 4 and how it killed DMC for 11 years. Yes, I'm ignoring the elephant in the room. Thank you for asking. Despite selling 2.4 million copies, DMC4 told Capcom that we didn't like Devil May Cry anymore and wanted something edgier. Which we got, supposedly. Still ignoring.
I like you, mister. You have a kind face. The kind I like to punch.
That is until 2018 when Devil May Cry 5 was released to amazing stardom. Almost 9 million copies sold.
And they made a slight
anime deal. A special edition with a song memed to the high heavens. Things are looking up for the series that did end up crying after all. And since then,
not a lot.
Okay,
I mean, it revived it for a
Devil May
bit,
Cry 5
but we
really
get the
did
idea.
bring the series back in a fantastic way. Dante and Virgil returning and reforming Nero was the smartest thing Capcom could have done.
True.
Combine that with stylish gameplay that even Kamiya would froth out and you got a star. Imagine how its sales even stood up to Capcom's other juggernauts. But we haven't had much since then. We had a mobile game that, despite the name, was the peak of pathetic. We do have an anime coming up by the same people behind Castlevania, so...
maybe?
It'll look nice. It's hard to say where Devil May Cry is nowadays, as it's been 7 years since 5's release. What I can say is that 5 is where it does end. It does so on the highest of notes. And leaving a legacy for other games and spin-offs to come out is how you preserve. And that's all we can hope for. But since you gave us that mobile game, we're going to need another mainline. Thanks, Capcom. Appreciate it.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, I'm like, yo, we get our next game, but I guess they want to make sure the next one's great as that, but we'll see. Anyway, 8.
After the legendary
Zelda.
titles known as Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, there was a little bit of a desert, shall we say, within the Zelda franchise. Wind Waker is wonderful in hindsight, but it wasn't received by all.
Ew, Dad!
Ooh, Mommy light.
Who's making this stuff?
Not me!
The Oracle games were also
You're wrong.
alright, but more or less overlooked, along with Minish Cap and
Yeah.
Four Swords. Again, all great games, but lacked the majesty of the N64 Diamond Duo.
So, Breath of
So
the Wild?
thank heavens for Twilight Princess.
Oh, never mind. That first. That could work. Oh, yeah. This one, I feel.
The true danger, darkness, villainy, stakes, and adventure you craved in a Zelda title are so back. I hope you like not seeing sometimes.
Kidding.
Speaking of dark, Twilight Princess decided to put on its big boy pants in 2006 by pulling up a full-fledged T rating.
Yeah,
The first of its kind, and the only Zelda title with such a rating to this very day. Impressive. It certainly boasts a far visually bleaker and more realistic
Why hasn't it
style,
re-released this
especially
for
in
the Switch?
drastic comparison
Or
to the
the-
cel-shaded lighter art styles of installments like Wind Waker or Minish Cap. First time for everything, I suppose.
Sure.
Now, what could our hero Link be saving this time around? Hyrule from the realm of Twilight, of course, as a fur with the recently
Well, just
overgrown
a wolf.
and impified
Not
Princess
furry,
of
but
Twilight.
You get the idea.
Twilight Princess.
I am Princess Twilight Sparkle!
Resident
Sorry,
Big Bad
Saul.
Zant is the ultimate usurper in question, and easily the most
There they go
menacing Zelda villain we've had
Hi,
since
Zant.
Majora's Reign of Terror. This time with more
Oh,
sentience
when
that may
Tilly
or
went
may not
crazy.
increase your personal fear factor. Certainly, even though there were more of the main cast we expect than were found in Majora's Mask, things are still just different enough to keep things interesting. Zelda is Zant's prisoner in her own castle. Yay, more usurping. And Ganon is lifeless here and there with some possession for good measure. Honestly, I think more Zelda titles should try what Twilight Princess did so well. Not to shame on great installments that did things completely new, but finding this blend of what's familiar with new ideas for the franchise is what made this game the franchise saver it is. Twilight Princess won multiple Game Awards and was deemed by
look at
some
that.
as one of the best games ever made.
Oh,
and
nice.
until Breath of the Wild, no Zelda game sold more copies.
Whew.
None. Whether it's one of those
Wow.
Zelda titles you glance over for being a bit too thematically avant-garde or are the type to rank it above the rest of the greats as your favorite in the franchise, there's no denying that Twilight Princess came to us Zelda fans in a time most dire. Without it, we wouldn't have games like Echoes of Wisdom, Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom, nor would we have
wrong.
Skyward Sword to develop controversial opinions over.
Yeesh.
See? Everything has its place and purpose.
Fair in a way, but sometimes you just gotta figure out those moments that you're like, okay, so that's where our franchise ought to be. And when you lose your way, just figure it out. Sometimes mix old and new. Bada boom, bada bing, you're good. So, again, what to add, it's up to you. Anyway, number 7.
Around Around 1989, Jordan Mechner, whom some may recognize from Karateka, gifted to the world Prince of Persia. This classic platformer was praised heavily for its fluid animation, achieved using rotoscoping, and how it captured the feel of a classic swashbuckler film. 4 years later, lightning struck twice with the sequel, Shadow and the Flame. Both games did well critically, but they kinda fell into niche territory due to the high and debatably unfair difficulty. Then in 1999, the franchise's assets were sold off and made its first venture into 3D and...
Oh god! Ooh, 3D.
Ooh, it bombed hard.
Womp womp.
It was crawling with bugs, and the gameplay somehow felt even crueler than its predecessors. Add the rough character designs and the ibless Forsaken camera, and it was undeniable. The Prince of Persia was dead, and 3D was the box he was buried in. But then in comes the savior, Ubisoft.
Oh, hi.
You know, before what
They
we
were
know
bad,
now.
yeah.
Given how burnt out Mechner was, the company worked on a case to show that they could bring the Prince back to quality. Must have been one heck of a pitch, because Mechner worked closely with Ubisoft on the franchise's hopeful return to form.
Sands of time.
It was an uphill battle trying to get it right, both gameplay and story-wise. Finally, they found it, with undeniably one of the coolest weapons in video game history.
Wait, that's not right. Let me start again.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Whoop. There it goes.
The Dagger of Time.
Yep.
If the immersive environment, fluid gameplay, and a steadily flowing story don't draw you in, getting the ultimate redo button definitely
pretty
will.
much.
And also make you realize how handy life would be if the dagger was real. Sands of Time isn't particularly long or complex, and there are a few elements that the devs had to cut. But honestly, it doesn't have to be. It's short and sweet with gameplay and a story that feels naturally paced and chock full of character. It never feels monotonous, and the Dagger of Time helped it stand out in the best ways compared to its predecessors. More importantly, it did what it set out to do. It sparked new life into a dead game series. Yeah, it'd have a few more bumps along the way, kind of inevitable. Some more conflicting than others, but Sands of Time made sure that the Prince stayed out of obscurity and paved the way for more adventures.
And the quality up there. But anyway, number 6.
Doom exploded.
Oh, I
onto
think
the
I know where
scene
this
in
is going.
1993.
2016.
So many people tried to download it at once that it crashed the server.
Oh, the
Coupled with
university,
Wolfenstein
wow.
3D, it firmly established the first-person shooter as a new genre. In another timeline, we would have been calling them Wolfendooms. Its success naturally led to a sequel the very next year. Then things got a bit awkward. While Doom 64 was still good, many fans ignored it due to it presumably being just a port. Didn't help that it took until 2020 for it to get an official port. The long-awaited Doom 3 was a massive departure, being a reboot that was more of a survival horror game. Again,
So
not
I
a
think you
bad
can
game,
see
just
where
not
this
what
got
fans were
from the
hoping
movie.
for. Doom 4 was announced in 2008, only for it to quickly fall into development hell. After that, the franchise succumbed to the fate so many others did. Spin-offs and mobile games that no one asked for. Even when Doom 2016 was finally announced with an actual release date and gameplay footage, people were still skeptical. Marketing focused far more on the multiplayer, and there was no input from the original creators. Of course, as you can tell by the placement on the list, the game blew everyone away. Everything that fans loved about the old games is here, and it was better than ever. Coupled with the new glory kills and awesome soundtrack, it was clear the franchise was back and better than ever. Its success spawned a completely new trilogy, with it being followed up by Doom Eternal and the upcoming Dark Ages. Heck, we even got John Romero to come back and make the unofficial 5th episode of the original. As of this video's upload, Dark Ages has not been released.
Yet.
Let's hope Bethesda doesn't find a way to make the title literal.
Yeah, hopefully Bethesda don't screw us up. Yeesh. Sorry, I had to say it. Number 5.
Oh, Nintendo. We love it when you give your best franchises love, but boy, there are a lot of them that are just abandoned. F-Zero, Earthbound, Star Fox, Starfy. Oh, won't someone think of the Starfy fans? But for a while, one of those abandoned franchises was Metroid.
Yeah.
After the groundbreaking Prime trilogy, Metroid fans were waiting with bated breath to see where things would go. What they got was
Other M and
What sick man sends babies to fight me?
with very middling gameplay and a story that beats you over the head with its symbolism and themes far more than necessary, Other M was not what people expected, and it suffered for it. But hey, there's at least one more Metroid around the corner, so we waited and
waited and waited.
Oh, look, there's a new Metroid in Nintendo Land.
Yep.
They made it right. And it's
no.
a chibi spin-off multiplayer game for the 3DS without Samus.
Ugh.
Oh no, this franchise is joining the pile, isn't it?
Mhm.
Well, lucky for us, Nintendo was cooking in the background, and the wait ended with the release of Metroid Samus Returns. This game goes back to its series' roots. It's not so much a remake of the second game as it is a
I'll be
complete
honest, it took me
overhaul
till
and
dread to
retelling
play
of it.
this
Brand
franchise.
new gameplay elements, bosses, the whole works. Coincidentally, Nintendo got into hot water right before this after taking down a fan-made project doing exactly that. We thought it was just standard Nintendo, don't make your own fun with our games. Fair, and yeah, it was. But with this, it made a little bit more sense, because they were actually going to do it. This game makes sure every ability is constantly used to its fullest in both puzzles and combat. Oh, let's talk about that combat. Samus's abilities feel punchier than ever, and the melee counter adds another layer of depth to taking on enemies. And those finishers are visceral, making Samus feel almost akin to Nintendo's version of Doom Guy, ripping and tearing her way through Metroids. Also, for a 3DS title, this game looks pretty impressive. Areas feel lively, vibrant, and full of color, like a real mysterious alien world. Samus Returns really was the kick Metroid needed to get back into full gear. I mean, look at Metroid now. Samus Returns set the stage for dread in both gameplay and story. The Prime remake came out soon after that to thunderous applause, and oh look, Metroid Prime 4 is actually
finally
real.
coming out.
Before this game, if you tell a Metroid fan all that, you'd be laughed off as another fake clickbaity leaker.
Yep.
But no,
Nope,
all
it's
this
real.
happened, and we have Samus Returns to thank.
Amen. Again, I kind of said I never got the chance to play it. No.
Resident Evil,
Oh.
one of the greatest survival
So,
horror franchises of all
which
time.
one?
But for a
7?
painful stretch,
Okay, that's gotta be
that was
7,
not
right?
the case. After 4, the series went
Oh,
further
yeah.
in the direction of campy action and placed increasingly less focus on actual tension and fear. While camp had always been a part of Resident Evil's charm, it was less Dynasty Warriors and more Evil
Veronica?
Dead. This reached its nadir with
Oh,
6,
six,
which was
hi.
a horror game in the same way that I consume alcohol, i.e. not at all.
Pretty much.
Maybe Doom and Resident Evil should have switched design philosophies.
Oops.
But with it selling well over 7 million copies, despite being critically panned and mocked, it seemed like this was the direction the series would maintain. But then,
luckily
the
enough.
impossible
Yep,
happened.
there we go. 7.
7 was
Biohazard.
everything that fans wanted and more. It brought back the
Isolated
most
stuff,
important
the jump
aspects
scares.
of the classics.
Look at
The
that.
actual
Ugh.
horror. For the first time in years, there was legitimate tension. You never knew what was going to be around that corner, or if it was worth sacrificing that precious healing item for more ammo. To say nothing of how playing in VR elevates the experience. Even more impressive, given that this was nearly a live service game. Dodge that rolling boulder. And for the fans who wanted the traditional third-person experience, the RE2 remake would arrive 2 years later. So, next time you're worshiping your favorite vampire mommy or steampunk daddy, remember that you have these Texas Chainsaw Massacre LARPers
Well,
to
Louisiana, but close. They're Louisiana, but close enough, I guess. Still, you gotta give them credit. Resident Evil heard and was like, you know, let's do it again. Let's go back to the original and bada boom, bada bing, first person. But still, yet the whole live service, jeez. Thank God for that. I think we have enough of that on our plates. We don't need that as a Resident Evil game. You know? Just saying. I don't think any of us would even touch a franchise again if it went from that to live service. No offense. Anyone else? Or is that just me? Anywho. Number 3. Here we go. Oh. Hey, Phylum.
Who could have seen that coming, to the surprise of everybody?
Yeah,
Very much,
everyone,
Emble.
their mothers and their grandmothers already knew Fire Emblem Awakening is going to be on here. I know people have been complaining about its shortcomings as of late, but come on. There's
this
no
revived
pretending
Fire
this
Emblem.
game didn't say Fire Emblem. To be fair, before this, Fire Emblem never struggled in terms of quality.
More
Dragon
just in the
maybe,
out there
but
market,
when it
you know?
comes to actual new installments, it's just a matter of poor sales, timing, and a lack of accessible audience. Awakening was designated to be the last installment of the series before the team would pack their bags, but they still did their best to make the game into one last big hurrah. And boy, did that hurrah end up saving their butts instead.
Yep.
There's the obvious feature where nobody actually dies. We already know about that. No one wants pressure and tension in their strategy RPGs after all, so this game delivers that safe experience in spades. This is a joke, please don't hit me.
Yep.
But that's only for the sake
It's
of
wrong.
grabbing newcomers. A big part of what keeps them is the enjoyable characters. The new support system gives the freedom to use a variety of unit combos, as well as extensive character interactions. On top of all that, the gameplay is still sheer Fire Emblem goodness, inheriting a lot of strong gameplay features from previous titles like Sacred Stone's branched promotions and the skills system from the Jogdral and Tellius games. Awakening is not only great at appealing to a wider audience, but it also hooks them into the same kind of fun older fans of the series are familiar with. Is the game perfect? No, obviously. It has some issues like the story falling off towards the end, the villains kinda suck, and the second seal is wholly unbalanced. Doesn't help much that future games hadn't kept a consistent momentum with improving on these issues. Still, those games did breathe life into the franchise, and I'm grateful we got them, even if I don't like every single one.
Looking
And
at
this
you.
much-needed renaissance wouldn't have been possible if Awakening didn't take off.
Ain't wrong. Still awakened a lot. Well, I'm gonna be here with for 2.
So,
What next?
does it count if the franchise in question isn't originally a video game franchise? For our purposes, yes. So
Okay.
let's talk about Warhammer. Fantasy.
Look at this dude.
Yeah, you might
Warhammer,
be
huh?
familiar with Warhammer 40k's insanity with Space Marines and Grimdark
True.
galore, but what you might not know is that the tabletop juggernaut started out as a fantasy series. Yep, it's the Persona conundrum here.
Hi,
The
Persona.
spin-off ended up eclipsing the original in popularity.
Wolf.
40k's popularity was so great, in fact, that Warhammer Fantasy pretty much stopped selling. Fantasy became practically unprofitable, and in a move that angered pretty much any remaining fans, Games Workshop decided to blow up the setting in a big apocalypse event known as the End Times. People weren't happy.
Yep.
Aside from the obvious reasons of everyone is dead now, the End Times was plagued with a lot of bad writing decisions that made the entire event feel extremely forced. And all just to reboot the setting in an attempt to garner any interest back.
You've posted cringe.
For all
You-
intents and
you
purposes,
post cringe.
Warhammer Fantasy was as dead as a franchise can get. But around this time, Creative Assembly, the makers of the Total War franchise, took a risk and released a Warhammer-flavored Total War game. And this game evolved into an absolute monster of an RTS. Right out of the gate, this game was hefty with content. The 4 base factions all played wildly different with entirely unique mechanics, aesthetics, and units. And it just kept growing. Every DLC, more things from the lore kept getting added. More characters, more factions, and the sequel only added to the pile. With a new mode, Mortal Empires, meaning whatever you owned from the first game, you could play within the sequel. Fast forward to the third game, the playable roster is sitting at a respectable 100 characters.
Damn.
With all this, Warhammer Total War provided an easy way for people to get into the infamously hard to get into Warhammer series.
Damn.
It was extremely accessible to learn about the lore and characters. Oh, attention flooded into Warhammer Fantasy. People fell in love with the setting, and a whole new wave of people began clamoring for its return in the tabletop. And, well,
There you go.
Warhammer The Old World was eventually revealed, a planned repackaging of the original models with all new stories to tell, and the ability to actually play the tabletop game again. Not to mention the reboot, Age of Sigmar, got more positive attention now that it wasn't just Fantasy's replacement.
There you go.
For a licensed game to pull a feat like this, to revive a franchise back from the dead this much, that's absolutely nothing more than a
game that
miracle on all
revives a
fronts.
tabletop?
Surprisingly
Wow.
hopeful ending for a series as hopeless in atmosphere as Warhammer.
That's hit a lot. I mean, I haven't played tabletops like honorable mentions. Let's go.
FNAF Into the Pit would have made the list if it weren't for the movie doing its job for it. King of Fighters 14, not exactly a full return to form, but did
Fair.
revive the franchise. That counts.
I'd say.
Street Fighter 4. The series was in an awkward stage during the 3D
Yeah, that sounds
transition.
about right.
Then 4 made the franchise, dare I say,
Awesome.
fun again. Mortal Kombat 2011, a soft reboot, but with enough care to bring the series back to form.
Missed that one. Oh.
Commercial break.
Looking for a custom-built PC that's crafted with precision, power, and performance in mind? Look no further than Redneck Engineer. Every PC they
There we
build is
go.
professionally assembled using carefully selected components to maximize performance and ensure reliability. They handle everything: BIOS updates, driver installations, and system benchmarks, so your PC arrives plug-and-play ready right out of the box. Their systems are designed to deliver top-notch performance,
Starters,
whether you're
gamers,
competing in
streamers,
esports, streaming to your
signatures.
audience, or creating the next viral video. With Redneck Engineer, you get the best hardware at the best price. Plus, with lifetime customer support and a 1-year parts and labor warranty, you'll always have peace of mind. Head over to redneckengineer.com and use code JoshScorcher at checkout for 5% off your order. Redneck Engineer. Game like a pro and build your ultimate gaming experience.
Commercial break.
Number 1. Here we go. The number 1 franchise saver is...
Looking back at all these franchises, you wonder how they were in the state that it needed a revival in the first place. It could be one bad game or just many bad decisions over a decade. Let's look at Sonic, for instance.
There we go.
Sonic of today is riding really high. With the success of the third Sonic movie and Shadow Generations, Sonic is hitting a rush the blue blur hasn't felt in years. Sure, that's more thanks to Shadow than anything else, but still, Sonic's name's on the box. But you don't need me to tell you how up and down Sonic's history has been. Besides the 100 times I've already done.
Sonic 06.
Well, what's one more?
But
Since
talk
OG
about-
Generation, Sonic's 3D escapades were not great. With
Oof.
lackluster games like Forces and Lost World, and especially the terrible brokenness of Sonic Boom, ugh. Outside of spin-offs and some 2D
I mean, yeah.
games, Sonic was hitting a stopping point. Even the Colors remaster, which was supposed to be the chosen one, tripped right out of the gate.
Whoops.
And then Sonic announced its next Sonic
here we go.
project, a more open-world Sonic game with a new story and cool techniques, and everyone went,
boy.
please be good? Yeah, Frontiers had a lot to prove. Sega kept throwing things at the wall to see what would stick, and most of them didn't even
Yep,
reach the
flopped.
wall. And we've since learned, if Frontiers didn't sell well,
We were
Sega was
screwed.
going to pull the plug on 3D Sonic entirely.
Yeesh.
But thankfully, Frontiers worked. Combining Sonic's boost gameplay with some beat-em-up elements to make a more exploration-type game was a good move on
Yeah, true.
Sega's part. Sure, it's the same find the beacon to show the map and then go to these points that show up trope that we've seen in most open-world games for decades.
Expect
But it
anything
works
less?
really well when you're playing as a super fast hedgehog.
Yoo-hoo!
Collecting is figuring out speed puzzles or going through stages, learning new skills, a somber and interesting story that builds on Sonic's lore, and free updates that expand the game even further made this an absolute win. It made people realize, like, hey, you can enjoy Sonic again.
Yep.
Does the game have issues? Well, yeah. The draw distance is abysmal.
Yeah.
The boost can be wonky,
Oh,
and
boy.
objects that should have collision
Don't.
don't. But who cares? You get to fight giant mechs as Super
Yeehaw!
Sonic. You get a free DLC that lets you play as Tails, Amy, and Knuckles, which ramps up the difficulty. You get Spin Dash, and it's super broken. While we haven't gotten a brand new 3D Sonic game since then, Frontiers brought back a feeling that I
Yeah,
missed
it's
in
definitely one
Sonic
of those
games
things.
since
You're like,
Generations.
enjoy what you got. You
It's
know?
not
What do you
perfect,
want?
but neither is Sonic.
True.
Going fast and having a blast is what we want, and man, that's all
We
we
love.
need. With the fourth Sonic movie announced and Sonic getting a cool new racing game that looks great, I hope we can continue this high for a while. Or until Silver Generations. I'm Josh Scorcher,
Yeah, I don't know,
and
say
I'm
Silver.
proud of these franchises getting back in shape. Now let's not think about how we haven't had a new 3D Mario game in 7 years and why that series is still winning. And yes, I'm hoping this statement will age poorly. Give me the Mario, Nintendo!
You ain't wrong. I mean, last 3D was Odyssey, and well, we haven't seen much from them. I mean, geez, 2025, dude, come on. They went in for the Switch too, which eventually I really ought to put some time out for the, the direct, or I might just catch it up afterwards, but we'll see. Anywho, they're the franchise savers with Sonic Frontiers taking the top spot. Honestly, a lot of these you could definitely agree they saved the franchise, but let me know your opinions. Which one do you think was the best? At it. Adios.